Here I am again with another set of stories, so please consider subscribing to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. And while you're at it, click the notification as well. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Story 1. You want to call my mom because I don't want to die? Okay, call her. It's my first time really using Reddit, so I apologize if it's not the best formatted. I was recently reminded of a malicious compliance I did as a kid. For context, I have an extremely bad peanut and tree nut allergy. If I eat or touch peanuts or nuts, I can go into anaphylactic shock, meaning my throat closes up and basically, I'll choke to death. I carry an EpiPen with me at all times because of this. Additional information on this teacher: she hated children, like the type of teacher who yells at kids if they got something incorrectly. For the sake of keeping everything anonymous, I'll call her Mrs. Idiot and refer to myself as me. With that out of the way, to the story. I was in first grade, and by this time I had a good grasp on how bad my peanut and nut allergy were. Always read labels, never eat others' home-cooked meals, and that I shouldn't trust someone just because they say, I don't think it has nuts in it. If you don't know, then don't offer those foods to small children who may not know any better. It was first grade and I was having fun coloring something on paper waiting for my teacher. As I was finishing drawing, my teacher got out a fun activity worksheet involving candy. If I remember correctly, it involved counting or something math-related. As she was passing out the worksheets and candy, I noticed that they were M&Ms, which I'm allergic to. The interaction went something like this: it's me, Mrs. Idiot, I can't have these, I'm allergic. Mrs. Idiot, they're original M&Ms, they don't have peanuts in them. Me, but my mom says I'm allergic to the originals too. Mrs. Idiot, they're fine, you can have them. To this day, I don't know why a teacher would ever tell a kid with allergies to eat something the kid thinks or knows they're allergic to. Also, while original M&Ms don't have peanuts or nuts directly in them, they're made on the same equipment as peanut M&Ms. This exchange went on for a while, with the idiotic teacher telling me that they're fine and me saying they're not. I think the teacher actually believed I was purposely trying to annoy her. Mrs. Idiot, if you don't start behaving, I'm going to call your mother and you will be in big trouble. Younger me realized that my mom was just going to say the same thing. Instead of telling her that, I sat there and smiled at the teacher and said, okay, call her. I remember wondering why the teacher just didn't believe me. Looking back, that teacher definitely hated being told she was wrong, especially by a first grader. The idiot teacher looked annoyed but smug, I guess thinking that my mom would yell at me for not wanting to die or have a giant needle put in my thigh and being rushed to the hospital. Now I don't know the full exchange between my mom and the idiot teacher because this was so long ago and my mom doesn't remember what exactly was said, just that she was extremely angry. I know she tore into my teacher because me and everyone who was present in class could hear my mom yelling through the phone. I think for the first time ever I saw my idiotic teacher actually nervous. After my mom tore the teacher a new one, the teacher brought me to the corner of the room and handed me a bag of Skittles, which she apparently had the entire time. It sucked being alone for the activity, but I happily did my assignment eating my packet of Skittles, knowing fully well my teacher was simmering at her desk, annoyed that a 7-year-old knew better than she did. Later it was revealed that my mom sent an email to the school's principal, which luckily for the idiotic teacher's case was my mom's second draft and had nicer words in it. That teacher had to do a refresher course on allergies by the nurse, which was shown to her already at the beginning of the year. I guess my school was desperate for teachers because she continued to teach at that school even though she had other incidents. As much as I'd like to say I ate the M&Ms and watched as her career tanked, blowing up like a Thanksgiving Day parade balloon, I did not. As the wise Sid the Sloth said, no thanks, I choose life. Kindly subscribe the channel and support me to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. Story 2. If you don't like it, then leave. Okay, I will. Title was supposed to say then leave. Oops. Cast: Karen manager, store manager, meat manager, grocery manager. This story takes place about 2 months before I quit my job at the grocery store and started my first year of college. This story has a bit of exposition, so please bear with me. I was glad when I got to put my Karen manager in her place. Things had slowly started to cool down, and for the next few months it was business as usual. The old store manager had to open another store, so they brought in a new one. This one was very professional and quite kind. This store manager always recognized various employees in different departments for their hard work. This recognition of us lower employees made our Karen manager less than happy. I had started to notice a lot more people being hired and everyone's hours suffered because of it. I found out later they did this because part-time employees could be paid less and they wanted to cut costs. 'Tis the life of a retail worker. I wanted to keep making money in preparation for college, so I went into Karen Manager's office and spoke. Me, hey, Karen Manager. I noticed my hours were being cut and I wanted to see if I could pick up some extra shifts. She scoffed at me and said, Karen Manager, it's a department-wide decision. If you want hours, go to another department. I wouldn't waste your time though. I looked at her confused and asked, me, why not, Karen Manager? They only have hard-working employees in their departments. You wouldn't fit in. I was dumbfounded. I thought Karen's BS bully routine was over, but boy was I wrong. I stood there unsure what to say. Meanwhile, Karen Manager had another Umbridge smile plastered on her face. I just turned around and walked out of her office. I didn't know if Karen Manager had already lied to the other managers or not, but I might as well ask. I first went to the meat department and explained my situation. I told the manager that our department's hours were being cut and asked if I could do anything to help them out. The meat manager smiled warmly and said, Meat Manager, I understand how frustrating low hours can be. We have a guy on vacation for a few weeks and we have had to stay late to wash all the pans and plates for our meat. It's simple washing and drying. You get to wear headphones within reason and you would make what a starting meat associate would. Want the job? I was beaming and immediately took the offer. The job was simple as he promised and I took it seriously. I wanted to show other managers that I was a hard worker and reliable. 3 weeks passed by with no issue. Inevitably, their missing associate came back and I had to be let go from that position. Luckily, I had spoken to the grocery manager the day before and our conversation was somewhat similar. I explained my situation and she understood. She said, Grocery manager, you just need to tidy up the shelves, put out product on aisle-labeled carts, and help unload trucks when they come in. Your pay will be a starting grocery associate pay. For context, both types of associate pay were an increase from my normal department. I took the offer and immediately helped the grocery department. Everything was fine until grocery hired a full-time employee and I had to go back to my normal department. I expected business as usual, but I got one hell of a surprise. The first day back, Karen Manager yanked me in her office. The conversation went like this. Karen Manager, what the hell do you think you are doing, OP? I told you our department's hours were cut. Me, I know, you said I could try working with other departments. You also said some other nasty things, but I don't care to repeat those. She glared at me and said, Karen Manager, OP, you are making our department look bad. We are trying to cut costs and you are burning through hours we don't have. I decided to correct this smug Karen and said, Me, I understand you want to cut costs and you only have so many hours. I didn't take up any extra hours from our department. I took your rude suggestion and worked for other departments that were short-staffed and had an abundance of hours. I did nothing wrong. She growled at me and said, Karen Manager, listen OP, it's not fair to others in our department if you get full-time and other employees don't. I held my ground and said, Me, this system of hiring tons of part-timers is stupid and it's hurting quality full-time employees who need the hours. If you insist on hiring all these people, there is nothing stopping them from doing exactly what I did. There are plenty of departments that could use help. I was fed up with Karen's attitude and spoke my mind. Karen Manager, if you think my management practice is so ridiculous you can just leave. I was tired of her BS and just smiled. Me, okay, I will. I turned in my effects and clocked out. I said bye to my friends and drove home. The next day I was enjoying sleeping in for once when I got a phone call. It was the new store manager. I answered. Me, hello store manager, how are you this morning? Store manager, sorry to bother you OP, but could you come back to the store? I looked over the firing of you yesterday and Karen Manager was totally out of line. I talked to other managers you have worked for and they all had glowing reviews of your work. We are pretty short-staffed and we need you back. Me, I smiled, it was always nice to be needed after all. If you transfer me to grocery, effective immediately with the pay bump to boot. I will help your department when needed, but I want grocery manager as my new boss. Store manager, done. I just pulled up your file and transferred you over. You have my word, grocery manager is your new boss and Karen Manager has no authority over you anymore. I will be having a long talk with her over her managerial practices, believe me. I smirked and spoke. Me, I will see you in 10 minutes. I drove to the store and walked in. I picked up my effects from the store manager and shook his hand. I saw the shocked form of Karen Manager and snickered. I turned to a nearby customer with a smile. These last few weeks were going to be the best. Kindly subscribe the channel and support me to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. Story 3, finally able to give a Karen some grief. Karen manager, store manager, a bit of background. I used to work at a popular grocery store that's known for rolling over for customers. I started working for this grocery store during my gap year, before college. I wanted to save up some money before taking on the crippling burden that is student loans. When I started, the job was easy enough and the vast amount of people were kind. I didn't have to deal with a lot of Karens, and the hours were flexible. I really enjoyed my co-workers and managers. Life seemed great. That is until our department got a new boss. I don't know what it is about new bosses, but they always have to go on a power trip to consolidate power and to show everyone they mean business. Our Karen manager went around the department and started criticizing people for the stupidest things. Even if we were doing our job correctly, she would show up and tell us to work faster, and we were stealing company time. We all hated her, but she is our boss, so we just tried to do what we were told. I pride myself on finding the quickest and most efficient way to do a job. Thanks for the upbringing, Mom. I applied this to any of my duties for the day. It just so happened that the end of the day was coming up, and we had to return products that customers left behind, non-perishable. Of course, I was voluntold to go do it. This wasn't an issue as I had done this plenty of times before. I went about my task and finished in about 10 minutes. The second I got done, my KM called me into her office, and the following conversation ensued. Karen manager, close the door. Now, do you know why I called you in here? Me, no, Karen manager, I am trying to improve efficiency in the department, and you took way too long to do those go-backs. I won't tolerate people slacking off in my department. Do you understand? Me, I wasn't slacking off, trying to defend myself. I was just cutting me off, she reiterated. Karen manager, do you understand? Knowing I was being railroaded. I just sighed and said yes. Karen manager, to ensure you don't slack off again, you are forbidden from doing any more go-backs. I don't care if the store manager tells you otherwise. This is my department, and you will do as I say. I'm the boss. I get a smile on my face as I realize what she just said. I nod my head and reply, me, understood, I won't do go-backs no matter what. My Karen manager replied with an umbrage smile and said, Karen manager, good, now go back to work and don't forget what I said. I'm the boss. Turned around so she couldn't see my shit-eating grin and said, me, don't worry, message received loud and clear. A few days go by without incident until I finally get a chance to put my malicious compliance into action. The front desk supervisor seems that the go-back card is full and asked me to return the products. I smile and say, me, sorry, supervisor, Karen manager said I was wasting time and I am no longer allowed to return products. The supervisor gives me a weird look but just shrugs and tells another coworker to do it instead. This cycle continues on for the next month. One day, the store manager happens to be manning the front desk. The end of the day rolls around, and he looks at me and says, Store manager, hey, Opie, we have a lot of go-backs, and I need you to return them. Me, sorry, store manager. I'm not allowed to do go-backs anymore on account of slacking off. Store manager looks frustrated and says, store manager, I don't care if you are allowed to or not. I am telling you to take these back. Me, sorry store manager, Karen manager told me I am not to do any more go-backs no matter what, and I'd better follow her orders. Karen manager told me that this is her department and that she is the boss. Store manager looked pissed and stormed into the manager's office. A few minutes later, store manager called Karen manager to his office over the intercom. Karen manager came waddling out of her office and went into store manager's office. The door closed, and we could all hear muffled yelling. After about 10 minutes, the door opened, and Karen manager shuffled out. She glared daggers at me and told me to come to her office. I happily complied and said, me, yes, Karen manager, how can I be of assistance? Karen manager, you are allowed to do go-backs again. That is all. I smirked and left her office, happy that I could put a Karen in her place. Update, I'm surprised a lot of people enjoyed my story. I will continue sharing stories from this job and a hospital I used to work at. Hope you all enjoy them. Update part 2, I forgot about Rule 8. Hopefully OP doesn't really count. Everything else should be fixed. Kindly subscribe the channel and support me to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. Story 4, I had a racist manager, so I worked for a grocery store. I was the department head for the meat department, so racist guy is explaining why I should not order pork neck bones and certain other things. Now he means black people, you see. Some customers spend $5 and others spend $50, so, one day a week later or so, an elderly black woman asks if we have any turkey necks or pork neck bones. Store boss. The racist is maybe 10 feet away with another manager, so, I loud enough for everyone to hear me. Well, ma'am, you see. Some people, as I point to her, spend $5 and some people spend 50-inch. At this pointing, the poor woman is rightfully upset. Both managers easily hear me and have a "oh she it" look. As I finish that sentence I follow with, "It's not my policy, ma'am, it's his." And point right to him. I suggest you ask him to clarify it. I then hit send on 4 cases of each smoked meat we sold, 2 more of each than normal. That prick changed my last week's order to exclude those, like first, my department. Second, yeah, I'm white. I'm also trans, so a minority. Third, I ain't racist. And I am not okay with fucking up grandma's greens, being made a party to that shit, so racist guy is dealing with her and she is just perfectly verbally taking him apart. The other manager comes and gets me away, saying you're not supposed to say that. Kindly subscribe the channel and support me to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. Story 5, wait for feedback. Ongoing, TLDR, manager said to wait for feedback before doing any more work and to stop following up. Waiting now for 2 months with no work and no feedback. Hi all, thought I post this here while I am being maliciously compliant at my current job, TLDR, at the end. I have been with the company, 10,000 employees, for 4 years and switched departments last year due to relocation to another country and changed my contract to be fully remote. I really enjoyed the company and position as well as daily tasks and was challenged in many ways and learned a fair bit. But it wasn't a position with contractual, remote possibility, so I decided to change departments and to a fully remote position. The new team was very small with just 4 people including the manager. When I joined the team, I started by organizing their chaos into a workable structure and roadmap strategy on how we can achieve the completion of the open tasks and requests. My manager at that time was useless, but we got along fine and he let me do my thing. However, there are certain types of requests and changes where I do not have the authority to approve and it needs to go through my manager to the higher-ups for approval. In all that time, all the requests that I forwarded for approval, or just feedback, were still open and waiting. No matter how many one-to-one or team meetings we had, they are being pushed further out pending approval. For the first few months I had already completed all assigned tasks where possible and helped out in other teams when I could. This particular manager was promoted after 3 months of me joining and hired his replacement. The new manager joined us 3 months later and reports to my old manager. At this point I mainly worked with other teams and helping them. All my tasks are waiting approval and no new tasks were given. I am somewhat relaxed with new people during the onboarding process and make sure they have time to digest it all properly and understand the background. So again 3 months later and having learned what type my new manager is, I gave up on explaining the complex environment and what is required to be able to deliver results for me/us as a team. At this point, I have worked in that team for 9 months, onboarded my new manager and completed everything I could complete and helped my colleagues getting on with their open work. Naturally other teams didn't always need my help, so I was a bit idle for most of my manager's onboarding time. Over and over again have I stated to my new manager that I have nothing to do unless open tasks are given approval or new ones are assigned to me, and I asked to please escalate if any of it really needs to be done. 2 months ago, my new manager exploded on me during a meeting to stop asking for approval on the open tasks and wait for feedback. I specifically sent a follow-up email to get that in writing and promptly received a response back to wait for feedback or new tasks. Well, that's what I do now. I wait and do nothing besides the weekly team meeting where I have no updates. I also no longer help out in other teams because of what my manager said. If the teams really needed my help, they have to go through my new manager, and any request received was rejected. And I will keep waiting until, hopefully, it will explode. Edit 1. My manager's boss knows all of this from his own time managing the team. I have spoken to the big bosses, CEO and CTO, about it and followed it up twice with an email including everything that is still open, including items he needs to approve himself. So, I think they are very well aware of the situation. It just doesn't have priority right now. All evidence is saved in an accessible team space and I have a personal copy. Both I keep updated when something's come up. Fallout: one team member resigned last month and the other one is already looking for a new job. Important to know, there is a 20-year age gap between me and the other two members of the team. They still need/want more experience. Our new manager is early 60 and should retire soonish. We had an impromptu team meeting yesterday without the manager where we basically all laughed about this situation, but were sad at the same time that we could not use our skills. Personally, I decided to ride this wave and see where it goes. Because let's be honest, who doesn't enjoy being paid without having to work? Kindly subscribe the channel and support me to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. Story 6, you want me to be quiet? Okay. TLDR, the loud ninja makes noise so people aren't scared. When told to be quiet, he ends up scaring them instead. Ever since I was little, I was quiet. This was mainly due to having terrible older siblings and learned to walk silently. I have tried to make myself plop my feet so as not to scare people, but I've been known to walk extremely silently. Please note, I am a 305 feet 10 inches person with a huge beer belly. So, I couldn't hide even if I wanted to, since I usually wear black and a red vest. Since I am so silent, I have become loud, very vocal, so as not to scare people and let people know I am in the area. I talk to myself, sing songs, talk to everyone passing by, etc. I do my best to be friendly even though I'm socially drained every day and rather stay inside for that month. Regardless, I am a very loud person. A regular customer apparently did not like it since I was a very loud person and asked me to be quiet. I apologized and toned everything down, but my supervisor was also complained to. I was asked to become less loud. Okay. Since then, I have scared a lot of people, ranging from customers to the very own supervisor. I usually greet people 5 to 10 feet away from them so as to not get too close. Most of them I have even made eye contact with and still scare them. Essentially giving jump scares to everyone, and people complained I wasn't in my department. Almost everyone I have joked with by stating I need a bell. The fallout, last week, I decided 1 week of torture was good enough. It was time to go ahead and stop being a gremlin. As much as I enjoy scaring people that are taller than me, I was probably creating an unsafe work environment. So, I decided to make 3 rules to make things better. No big blowout. No real problems, just making an adult decision. 1. Try to greet everyone from the end of the aisle so as to avoid scaring them too much. 2. If I somehow sneak up on them, take several steps back so as to give them even more space. 3. Tell your coworkers you are going behind them at any point in time. I have followed each one to the letter and have gotten less jump scares from customers. The fellow supervisors and coworkers are another story. I have actually gotten more jump scares from them than when I was silent. For example, I came around a corner and I stopped to see a supervisor helping a cashier. I said I was coming behind them and they both jumped. The supervisor even screamed a little. Responding to some comments from the last post that I could remember, I do not come close to someone I know that was in the armed services or police force. I make sure they know where I am at all times, because you don't own PTSD, PTSD owns you. Meaning something could set you off, and I do not want that because of me. I respect them too much for that. Unfortunately, no one else has joined me in on trying to scare the supervisors. I told maybe 1 or 2 people about it, but they just put it off as workplace antics. I wish to thank everyone that posted a comment stating they also scare people. I got a huge kick from those comments and hope you occasionally scare people when it's safe to do so. I certainly plan to restart being a gremlin when Halloween hits. Thank you for tuning in. Kindly subscribe the channel and support me to keep me motivated for creating content and bringing it to you for your entertainment. And while you're at it, click the notification as well. This is all for now. See you again in the next video.